We are here in Paris for the second episode of My Afropolitan Diary with the beautiful ladies behind the YouTube channel Almost Parisienne for a girl chat on living and loving as Black women in Paris.
So, Satania from New York, the Bronx, Boogie Down, and I've been in Paris for almost 4 years.
I'm Maya from Los Angeles, and I've been in Paris for almost 5 years.
I'm Hannah from Gothenburg, Sweden. I've been living in Paris for 7 years.
So you're the better.
Oh my gosh, I guess I am.
Should pretty much say I've been here for 35 years.
No,
More or
not
less
yet.
the same thing.
So when you first moved to Paris, like the first few weeks, what was the most shocking thing that you experienced?
Oh.
Was there any culture shock?
For me, I think it was subtle. It's like the little subtle things, like the and this isn't necessarily like a hit at Parisians or French people, but like the level of sometimes they can be quite pessimistic in the way that they approach things and the way that they approach life. And like I said, this isn't like speak badly about them. Just something I noticed, and coming from the American perspective, where it's like, oh my God, yes, you're awesome, do it, please. This is the best idea I've ever heard in my life. To like experience the complete opposite, which is no. It's opposite. It's like, what? So that was hard. And also, I moved here thinking that I spoke French, and then I realized I didn't. I realized that I didn't. So, merci. So that was also like, okay.
Reality check.
Yeah. No one here says, like I mentioned, no one here ever says, "Comment allez-vous, madame?" That's just not something people say. So yeah, that was hard for me.
It's reality.
That was hard for me. Yeah.
I think for me, because I came here to do my master's, I was like in a little bit of a bubble, like with my school. But I think just the biggest shock is that I didn't speak the language. I really was like alone, which was like a bit shocking. I was like, oh, I'm gonna move to France. I at least knew my boyfriend was not too far, but I was like alone in Paris, so that was like a weird sensation. And also just the fact, because I was living in the south of Spain where people are super open and friendly, I had the same perception that, or I thought that people would be super friendly and open in Paris, and that was the opposite. So that was a bit hard for me too, because I was like, I'm alone, I don't speak the language, and people aren't so friendly, and just trying to navigate and find my way here was a bit difficult and shocking. I thought it would be much easier than it was actually.
I do agree with what they've said before as well, but I think for me the biggest shock was that I couldn't get along not speaking French. I thought English would be a good help, but I came here ready to work with my CV on the street, knocking doors. They're like, you don't speak French? No. And I was like, wow. So that was a bit shocking, because in Sweden people speak English and you can at least find something, but I mean, I've been here for 7 years, and now today it's much easier if you just come speaking English. But I think the biggest shock for me was not being able to settle without knowing the language.
It's interesting too how in such a short amount of time that changes, because
Yes.
7 years ago you could not get by without speaking French, and now I feel like it's easier. I mean, it's still like a plus to be able to speak the language, especially if you decide to come here, but I guess now I think it's easier to get by if you just speak English.
How have you been able to build your social network and create a community for yourselves here?
For me, it was through work. So I started working shortly after I moved, and it was through work I really got my first group of friends. From there, it's like, oh, I know someone that knows someone. Like, I think you guys might get along. Like, just going out and introducing people that I've met, introducing me to other people, and just like being open to meeting people. Like, that's how I met Maya, by being open to meeting people.
Same for me, it was school. That I pretty much stayed with friends from school for the first 2 years because it was pretty intense, and then after that everybody left and I was by myself in Paris, and I was like, oh no, I need to meet people. How do I meet people? And I was like, I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, let me look for meetups and things like that. I never did that. It just has been pretty natural. So for example, the way I met Hannah was very natural. We met where I used to work at the time, and we hung out, and then we've been in touch ever since, and meeting friends of hers and so forth.
It's been the same for me. I mean, through work, and then from there, friends in common, and then you end up going to places that you love, and you meet people there, and then you share a lot of interests. So I think it's just kind of have this natural flow. As long as you're open and curious, it's very easy to meet people here, actually, I would say.
Yeah.
And both of you mentioned work. I was just wondering what the work culture is like here in Paris. Like, is there a good work-life balance as opposed to maybe New York and other cities?
Yeah, definite work-life balance. They definitely, I feel like French people or Parisians rather value and enjoy their downtime and their time with their friends and family. That's all I gotta say about that. Leave that in a positive light.
I think the work culture has been it's been something that I've had to get used to a little bit. I think coming from the US, like I've worked in New York and I've worked in Los Angeles, there's like a sense of urgency. I feel like things are faster, and here things are relaxed. I arrive, it's already like 10 o'clock, let's go for a coffee break, we work, lunch breaks. It's just like, doesn't feel so stressful, which is good, but at the same time, like sometimes I feel like it needs to be like a little faster, but it's nice. And like you were saying, work-life balance is really good. Holidays, it's like built into the culture, which I love. But yeah.
I remember, it's funny you mentioned the urgency thing. I remember, so my very first job here, I worked at an advertising agency, and I was still used to like the New York, because I worked in agencies in New York as well, so I was very used to that New York kind of like you sit at your desk during lunch and you work during lunch. So I was doing that the first week, and my boss, at the end of the week, she came up to me and she said, "Is everything okay? Like, you've been sitting here at your desk during lunch." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to get work done." And she looked at me like, "You don't sit at your desk during lunch, okay? Like, if you want to, you can have lunch with me, but you need to take a break. You do not sit here." And I was just like, "Okay, okay." I'm sorry. I got in trouble for
working too much.
Yeah. I got in trouble for like not taking a break, which I enjoy it. I've gotten too used to it. It's like 7 o'clock. Man, I'm still here. I gotta go home. I got wine to drink.
Well, I have to agree. I mean, where I'm from, everything is very well organized, and people are on time all the time, and here it's more of an organized mess.
Okay.
If I can say that.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, and so it was really hard for me to get used to it, because I at work I was always on time and always did everything that people asked for, and I think here I learned to be more spontaneous. I learned to be more on the go and not plan so much, and I think that has helped me through work, because you get more responsibility with that time as well, and people take you seriously and they want to promote you. But in the beginning, I don't think I was a fun colleague, because people would be like, "Who does she think she is?" Like always like following the rules and being the nice girl, and I was like, I'm just at work doing, but exactly. But I think it's a good balance I've learned here, actually.
So as we know, Paris is the city of love, and people have all these grand notions of what a romance in Paris is like. So having lived here for a couple of years, do you feel like dating here is easier? Do men in Paris seem to appreciate your beauty more than in other cities you've lived?
I think it's more of a cultural thing when it comes to interaction in general, where I'm used to back home in Sweden, people are more reserved and not cold, but like more quiet. Versus here, people are more outgoing, outspoken. So yeah, I mean, it's a different way of communicating. People would approach you more here than back home, I would say. But then the romantic part, I guess it's also a personal thing, what you think is romantic and what you appreciate within a relationship. But I feel here it's much easier to approach people, and people approach you more than what I'm used to back home, definitely.
I haven't dated. I haven't dated in Paris. I don't know. I've like been in a relationship the whole time I've been here, but I can understand how people think that it's a romantic city. Just as far as like the actual city itself, like I feel like it's romantic. Like there's a lot of like personal affection. People are openly affectionate. The city itself is beautiful. Like at nighttime, for example, we were just walking by the Seine, and it's like, oh, I feel like I'm in a movie. I just want to hold Hannah's hand.
Yeah,
like,
it's very romantic.
It's very romantic.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Okay.
It's fun, yeah.
Any funny dating stories, approaches on the street?
Approach on the street.
that doesn't really happen to me.
Just like, well, remember you said when you cut your hair, you were starting to
Oh
get a
yeah,
lot
when
of
I cut my hair, so like, oh my god, there's something about this short hair and like old white 65-year-old and older French men. I would be like, mais vous êtes hyper charmant. Oh, the funniest thing that happened to me. So I was walking from work, right? And I work in the 16th, so it's quite a fancy arrondissement. And I had my bag open, and this older gentleman stopped me and said, "Madame, your bag." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And he was like, "Vous avez un petit accent." I was like, I know where this is going. And I was like, "Oh, vous viens d'où? Like, where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from New York." "Oh, et vous vivez à Paris?" Oui, je vis à Paris. And then he goes into I'm crossing the street, he decides to cross with me. And then he says to me, "Je suis sûre que vous avez un amant, like I'm sure you have a lover." And I was just like, And then this is the kicker, guys. This is the kicker. He says to me, "Well, me, I've been married. I'm married, I've been married for a couple years now, but can I give you my number?" Au cas où. Au cas où.
Just in case.
There's no fucking au cas où. No. I said no. He was like, "Bon, okay."
At least you tried.
Yeah, at least he tried. And like, yeah, after I cut my hair, it was like a lot of old white French. It's kind of like, no offense, but I'm not trying to be your Nina Simone fantasy. Like, you should have done that when you had the chance. It's not gonna happen today.
What does it feel like to live as a black woman in Paris? Do you feel it's different from other cities? Do you feel integrated? Is there enough diversity here?
For me, one of the things that I really liked about being here was that it is very diverse. I feel like it's cool to be somewhere where you see so many different people from so many different places. Like I mentioned before, I moved to Paris. I was living in the south of Spain, where I stood out like a sore thumb, and it was a little draining actually, like to feel like, oh, I'm the only one. People like literally when I first arrived, people like pointing at me like la negrita, like never seeing a black person before, and being here is like really like a breath of fresh air to kind of just like feel like you can blend in. People never really, like if people look at me, they could assume I'm French, they can assume I'm American, somewhere in Africa, like it doesn't, like it's not obvious to know where I'm from, which I like. Yeah. What do you guys think as far as diversity, especially you coming from Sweden?
Yeah, I would say you have very much more diversity here, and it was a little bit more easier for me to blend in as well, and also dare to explore more of my roots, and not being ashamed or hide the hair or try to look like everybody else. But here I feel like I could really spread my wings and like just go full out and just be myself. So yeah, diversity here it helps a lot. It's completely different back home in Sweden and Stockholm. Even though it's a big city, it's still not as much things going on as here.
And just thinking about the current climate, especially what's going on in the States with Black Lives Matter and just racism in the Trump era, do you feel like you've experienced anything here in Paris?
If I'm going to be completely honest, I make it a point when I go into certain stores and frequent specific restaurants, even though I speak French and I understand, I make it a point to speak English. So I don't want. I've had the experience where I've been followed in certain stores, or like I walk in and they're kind of like, it's like, what are you doing here? But the moment I speak English, it's like, oh, she's American, she's a tourist, she got money. Like she's not gonna come here, should I steal something? So I make it a point to speak English just to kind of set that, like, don't treat me as if I'm inferior, or don't treat me as if I can't be trusted or something. But it could just be my own way.
It's interesting though if you speak English that you get treated differently, because imagine if we look the way we look, and if you're still speaking in French, why are they treating you differently than someone that's speaking English? But like you said, there's situations like that where you walk into a store and you're being followed, like on an everyday, like I don't want to be paranoid feeling like someone treats me differently just because of the way I look, but there are like little situations like that, or like and
also sometimes when I've just like had it, as much as I love French people and I'm very happy to be a part of this culture and be accepted, but sometimes it's like lack of, like just like miscommunication and just like frustration. I just like, listen, give me this, I need this, I'm saying in English, take out your dictionary, I'm done. Google Translate. Yeah, Google Translate, because I am finished, no more. and it just helps to like really get your message across a lot faster and easier.
Being born and raised in Sweden and being a black young girl or a black person, it was not easy. You know, you always had things coming. I mean, you had to, how do you say, work against not the wind, but still like, you know, uphill. So I said either I just like embrace who I am and what I am and what I want to do in life, or either I just go and look for all the things that it's bad, you know, around me. So it's like you said, I try to be the bigger person every day and like just let it wash off. And I choose my battles. I choose my battles because otherwise I would have moved to an island somewhere else, you know, like where I don't interact with people. But here, at least what I appreciate is that it's more in your face. Back home, it's more hidden, but here they will be like straight up. They tell you what they think, negative, positive, like they're more straight up. So that I was a bit shocked. And even, I mean, within our own communities, like when I say where I'm from, and I'm like, no, both my parents are black, and I'm African, it's like, how come you're so light skinned? And I'm like, bro, we're the same. Like, don't put me, like, it's fine. I just don't want to be from somewhere all the time. So even within our own communities, like when they don't recognize the features and when they don't recognize where you're from, your culture, you know, it kind of like doesn't really slide in a nice way. So
Do you plan on staying in Paris for the long haul, or is this just like a stop on the way?
I'm in it to win it. I'm here. I'm here. Get used to it, guys. Get used to this phase because I'm sticking around. At least I hope so. I would like to stay here.
I have no timeline. I would like to stay as long as I can. However, like, Paris lifestyle is a bit draining. It's very expensive, so sometimes I question how long I do want to stay here. Like, for now, in the short term, the next few years, for sure I plan to be here, but beyond that, I don't know. We'll see where my journey takes me.
I don't know. I don't know what long means. Like, I've been there for 7 years. I feel that's long.
It is really almost a decade.
Yeah, I know. Jesus, don't put it that way.
It's true though.
But yeah, it's true. It's a long time. But I don't know, since I feel like this is my home, and I feel like it took me several years before I got really comfortable and settled. So like technically, I can say like I've been living here for 3 or 4 years. It's up to that point, it was straight up hustling, and then exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's so easy being European. I can just move around and go back home or whatever. So it doesn't have to be that complicated if I would like to go home. But I feel like maybe Sweden wouldn't be the next stop. Maybe somewhere else. But for now, I would just take it like, you know, as it comes. I'm like pretty open to everything that the universe want to put my way. So
I think for us, since we don't have the luxury of being European,
I know, just booping here, booping there, booping everywhere.
we're always in this state of like, okay, peace renewal next year. Can I stay here? I'm never like in this sense of where, oh, I can see so long term. It's like, okay, I'm here for this year. Oh, I accomplished being able to stay longer. We'll revisit this next year and see. So it's like this always like ambiguous, like, I don't know how long I can stay here, if I can work here.
Not for me.
Well, for you,
I got my teacher's card. Got my teacher's show, guys. I'm good. 10 years, I'm good.
I'm good for 2 years. So
That's a start.